Vina is a stripper in a remote club called the Meat Market. Her life is not very easy already, and now she has a positive pregnancy test. Her boyfriend doesn't want to take responsibility, and her boss fires her, so Vina has less and less strength to hold on. The last thing she needs in this situation is the appearance of a maniac, who drives around in a white van, where he cuts up the caught victims for meat. Usually it's horror movies that have earned some universal fame that make it to the third installment, but that's the way it used to be when movies made money mostly at the box office or on physical media. The first installment of Butchers, filmed in Canada in 2020 on an extremely modest budget, paid off in just a few months on rights sales, and while you might not have heard of the movie once, its director and writer Adrian Langley was given the green light to make 2 sequels at once, the first of which was released in 2023 and the second a year later. Interestingly, in Bonesaw, Langley continues the chosen strategy. This is still not a sequel to any of the previous installments, but a completely independent movie from the first 2 films, differing from them not only in characters, but also in a tone. The first 2 parts of the trilogy were a variation on The Wrong Turn and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, while the third movie went somewhere in the direction of the Jeepers Creepers franchise, the main villain of which also drove around in a van and even looked not quite human. The latter, by the way, does not go in favor of Bonesaw, which is built as a detective thriller. In parallel to the story of Vina and her friends, we watch the police investigation, which is led by a local law enforcement officer. She carefully collects evidence and runs data on all white vans in the neighborhood, but how come nobody pays attention to the fact that our maniac looks like a natural Voldemort, a noseless and bald freak, who doesn't even try to hide from other people's eyes, is a big question. Formally, Bonesaw is divided into 3 parts, but it's a deception. There is only one central story in the movie, and it revolves around Vina. The barmaid Jade and DJ Cody, who appear in the next chapters, are here only for timing, as an attempt to play with a non-trivial structure. Unlike the second movie, in which one of the heroines was played by a man for some reason, in the threequel everything is very honest and old school, but into the fabric of the plot quite elegantly woven the social drama. Langley shows and examines life in the countryside in great detail, unobtrusively pushing the idea that a maniac with a bone saw is certainly an unpleasant character to meet, but there are so many dangerous things around young beautiful girls in such places that they can die any minute without his help. The latter immediately adds nerve and depth to Bonesaw, but at the same time the movie never once lets us forget that we are facing, first of all, a slasher. The killer here is silent and as businesslike as possible. He doesn't play with his victims, but kills them with a few heavy blows with a hammer and a couple of movements with the bone saw. Severed limbs, sawed-off heads, brains falling out of broken skulls. There's plenty of that in Butchers 3, and despite the fact that globally there's nothing new in the movie, one can't help but recognize that it's another solid step in the right direction for Langley and the franchise as a whole. It's a smart, yet brutal and good old-fashioned movie that can be recommended with a clear conscience to all slasher fans who can't get enough of genre with Terrifier.